Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host Paul Rook, and as always we are exclusive to the PAUK radio network. On tonight's show we are joined as always by the stupendous Kerry Greenaway and Richard Clements. Hello guys.
Hello.
Hello, how are you been this week?
I've been fine. Did you miss me?
Did, absolutely.
Oh, yes, you weren't with us last week, were you?
No. Did you all miss me, everybody out there listening?
Of course they did. Of course they did.
We had a good old tune made with the girls, didn't we, last week, Paul?
Yeah. It was really good. I enjoyed that last week.
Yeah, I love a bit of Alison. She's brilliant. I've not met her friend, but yeah, I thought they're good girls, they are.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
they were good.
They made it far too easy for you two boys, though, is all I'm going to say.
The perfect guest. What can I say? We only had to ask a few questions and they were off. It was brilliant. I like shows. I love shows like that. That's so brilliant. It is
easy option. Easy.
We'll probably have to work next week because Kerry's not with us next week. So
no, it's all right. We'll get a good couple of guests on again.
She's going away on holiday. I mean,
we'll get Alison back on, shall we?
Yeah, I reckon so.
Yeah, finally getting away on holiday.
Yeah, that's it.
I do apologise for the intermittent service of myself. It is all I can say. I'm a very busy girl at the moment. A very busy girl.
Apparently,
doing exams
you're in retail,
and stuff.
I've been told.
No, it's not just that. I'm doing an exam, and I'm coming up to the final stages of it. So I'm on and off at the moment, doing various revision and tests and writing business plans and God knows what else for this.
So you're on the sprint to the finish line now.
I'm literally on the sprint to the finish line and trying to do the work to get the exam. So yeah, so that's sort of why I'm a bit intermittent at the moment.
It's fine. You'll be good. You'll pass. Flying colours.
Well,
we all know you will.
I'm going for a distinction. I don't want just a pass. I've got to go for the distinction, haven't I? But we shall see.
If they're there, if it's there on you to grab it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going. That's what I'm going for. But we'll
that's
see.
It. The assessor would just go through, see your name, and go, "Oh, that's Kerry Greenaway of the Paranormal Concept Show. She's awesome. Pass distinction." That's what she'll do.
I hope so. That would be lovely. That would be great.
Excellent. Okay, so tonight we are also joined in the studio by a very good friend of mine and an acquaintance of Richard and Kerry. It's Dan Winters. Hello, Dan.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I hope you're all in fine spirits this evening.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Good.
How have you been?
Excellent.
You been all right?
Yeah, not bad at all, mate. Thank you. Yeah, I think like everybody, I've been sort of busy this week, and the week's just sort of shot by. But yeah, I'm slightly knackered now. So I'm glad that the weekend's rolled around, and hopefully get some downtime.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so let's learn a little bit about yourself, Dan. What can you tell us about yourself? Who are you? What do you do in the paranormal?
Well, I've been a paranormal investigator for quite a few years, and my sort of passion for the paranormal, or what started me off in it, is that I saw a full body apparition when I was a child, and it was in my mum and dad's house, and that was really what kicked it off for me. It terrified the life out of me, but it carried my interest. After that, I would eat up any information or anything that I could find through books, obviously at the time, because it was pre-internet days. I'm that old, yes. So it would be any book I could get my hand on, any information I could get my hand on regarding the spirit world and ghosts and what have you, apparitions. Then I would swallow the whole lot, left, right, and centre. And it made me a strange and odd child, because it meant that the only people that I wanted to knock around were other friends that had this sort of interest in the paranormal themselves. And believe it or not, there were about 2 or 3 of us that used to pretend to go out ghost hunting. We never did, but we'd just knock around and do things. And then as I grew older, got to about sort of 16 and 17, and then I started to go out with groups, and the rest's history, really. That's about it, really.
Excellent. Was there any favourite book that you had?
I used to love stuff by Peter Underwood. Absolutely loved stuff by Peter Underwood. And I still enjoy reading Peter Underwood's work. A lot of Harry Price's stuff as well. I absolutely adore Harry Price. And irrespective of what certain people say about him, I don't think that that's actually the truth. A lot of people have tried to discredit him after his death, but weren't happy enough to come forward while he was still alive. And obviously the man couldn't protect himself or defend himself. So yeah, I absolutely adore Harry Price. It was the old school ghost hunters really that I grew up with. So yeah, and when I started out, it was old school techniques that we were using. So it was things like talking to Viv the other day, and we were discussing the old school techniques that we used to use when we first initially started. So it was very much sort of bells on strings, sort of black tissue paper, and to spread some talcum powder over it to see if you could, pick up the odd footprint of some disembodied spirit or what have you. So there was, it was those type of things that we used to do. And then, as I say, I got involved with different groups over the years, and recently, myself and Viv, we've started a group called Striking Midnight Paranormal.
Yeah.
And the one thing that we want to do, I don't really get into it too much in regards to the politics that have gone on within the paranormal world, because I think that's just you want to keep away from that. It's just negative. But what's happened? The good thing with the negativity or the negativity in the paranormal world, what it's done is it's pushed people like ourselves and yourselves further out, I think, onto the periphery. So it means now that we can find each other, and we know that we're dealing with good, honest, credible, decent people.
Yeah,
and the
I actually agree with
just,
that.
And that's what I think that the negativity is still there. There's still an awful lot of it, but if you're on the periphery, you can just avoid it, and it's like it doesn't exist. And of course, myself and Viv, we go out with you guys as well. You're going to come out with us, and it's just networking with friends and decent people like yourselves. That's it really. That's it in a nutshell, really. And then I've just done many various investigations over the years, lots of different places, and that's me in a nutshell, really. Not a lot to tell.
How do you keep getting out of that nutshell, though? That's the thing.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a big nutshell. You see the size of me.
I kind of disagree that you're very self-deprecating. You've really underestimated yourself there, Dan, because when I first entered the field, yours was one of the very first names that I heard of in regards to the paranormal as a well-respected individual. How do you think you've managed to achieve that level of respectability within the field?
I think you've seen it yourself, Kerry, and you all have. Paul, you've seen it. Richard, you've probably seen it. But when I started, and even when I've been in the field for quite some time, there were people that were just joining, and the unfortunate thing is that it seemed to be more a crusade for fame than it did for the right ends and the right reasons. And there were so many people out there that were really, there's nothing wrong with self-promotion at all, nothing wrong with that at all. But these people were self-promoting themselves with ideas that were way beyond, their stature. And they were believing the hype about themselves. And I think seeing people do that kind of turned me the other way. So I didn't want to be recognised as one of those people. So I made sure through the years that I've never really been that self-promoting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, totally.
There are a lot of people out there that have been in the field a lot longer than I have, and I've never considered myself one of the world's greatest ghost or paranormal investigators, ghost hunter, call it what you will. But I just want to do the right thing, and hopefully do it for the right reasons. Thing with fame, I keep telling people, look, that boat sailed. That boat sailed. That if you 10, 15 years ago, you might have stood a chance, but that's not going to happen anymore. And so, consequently, you've probably seen it yourselves. Over the years, there's been lots and lots of faces that have come and gone and come and gone. And that's it, really.
So when you do your individual ghost hunting, and would you call it that, or would you call it paranormal investigating? How would you class yourself?
I call myself. I know a lot of people think that it's a negative term, ghost hunter, because it has got the wrong connotations and what have you. But I always call myself a ghost hunter because I don't really investigate. I don't investigate the paranormal. in the sense that I investigate every aspect of it. There's certain other aspects that I'm getting interested in now. The ufology thing never really rung any bells for me, and it still doesn't. And I've even tried to force the envelope and get myself interested in it, but even then, it's not really been my bag, really, as such. So I prefer the term, for me, ghost hunter. And as I say, I know that people say it's got the wrong connotations and that, but do you know what? I've been doing it for a long time, same as you guys, and I'm happy with that term. And that's what I call myself, because it's really ghosts, spirits, energies that I've studied and worked with, tried to work with over the years.
How would you think your investigation techniques have evolved over the years? So, like when you very first started going out to what you do now, do you think you've gone through an evolution in your ghost hunting techniques, shall we say?
Do you know what? Definitely. I started out with very rudimentary equipment, and it was just the basic stuff I used to have, and I still use one on occasion, not very often. In fact, I've probably got to get it out and dust it off. I've not used it for the last 3 or 4 years. But I like a normal run-of-the-mill tape recorder with normal tapes. I kind of like the analog stuff, and I feel that there was a lot of evidence caught via analog equipment over the years, and then people changed over to things like electronic stuff, and it kind of for me, there's too many grey areas with a lot of the electronic stuff. There's too many areas that could be misconstrued. So for example, with a lot of voice recorders now, people are thinking that they're getting, I think it's the DR60, isn't it, which is the Panasonic one, which is the one that goes for thousands and thousands of pounds. And it's come to light, they pulled it off the market, didn't they, at one point, because it came to light that the people were thinking they were getting voices or getting disembodied voices, but what they were getting echoes through the chambers because of the microphones. Yeah. And so I don't really tend to like a lot of, I use it because it's easy and it's handy, but I do like to use the analog stuff as and when I can. And I think what happened was I then sort of get started, like everybody does, I think. Maybe I'm probably more stupid than most, because I then spent a lot of money on a lot of this, the next best thing for ghost hunting, this modern equipment that were coming out with left, right, and centre, whether it be Ovilus, whether it be different apps. And I've never really been fond of apps and all of this stuff. And of course, the thing is, to know what works, you've got to first be able to quantify what you're researching and what you're investigating. And there's been no real foundations as to what a ghost is. It's all perception, isn't it? And it's sort of, it's at best it's guesses. And so what I noticed was a lot of this equipment just wasn't fit for purpose. It was bright lights, buzzing, and it really didn't fit the purpose. So I kind of scaled it all back now. And I'm scaling it back even now. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to get rid of. And I want to go back to the basics, which is just a voice recorder, a camera, maybe the odd K2s I'm not big on, but REM pods and stuff like that. I think that they've got their place. So just those type of things. So that's what I've done. So I've gone from having a very rudimentary kit right the way through to turning up with about 25 different cases, and now all the way back down to a small rucksack. And that suits me. That suits me. And people say to me, what would you recommend I buy? And I said, well, look, if you've got a mobile phone, you've got most of the stuff on that you really need, even up to sort of gauging temperatures and stuff. But I always tell people, steer clear of a lot of the apps, or all the apps really, because I think that they haven't got a purpose. I don't think they have. And that's just my opinion. Other people's opinions obviously differ, and I'm not saying I'm right, but for me, I don't think there's a point of them. A lot of them.
When you buy your equipment, do you research the piece that you're buying first, so you know the ins and outs of how it works and what anomalies it could pick up?
I did initially. Sorry, I'll tell a lie. Initially, I was just, I've got to have that. I've got to have this. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And of course, we've all been there. We've spent countless amount of money on equipment that we found out isn't fit for purpose. And so what I do now is I wait for a piece of kit to come out, and if I think I like the look of it, or I think it might have, it might have something to it, then what I will do is I will research it, and I will watch other teams that are using those pieces of kit and see how they work with them, and see what kind of evidence they get. But even then, you can't guarantee it's like I was saying to Viv today, you know, there's a lot of teams out there on YouTube, and I dare say there are a lot of teams out there in the sort of television world. And when they're asking questions or what sorts they're doing vigils and what have you, and all of a sudden the equipment goes off, there's no guarantee that equipment went off when they asked that question. They've just cut the video and they've stitched it together so that it looks like that.
Yeah.
You know. So I asked people that have got the equipment as well. You know, how have you got on with it? What do you think of it? Is it good? And it's surprising because a lot of people buy this equipment like I used to, but they don't have the first idea about what it does or how to use it. And they got this sort of basic knowledge of what it does, but they really don't know how to use it. And you know, is there a right way to use it? Who knows? Who knows? It's I suppose it's what you want out of it, isn't it? Really, if you want to use that type of equipment, then I haven't got a problem with it. But for me, yeah, I think I'm moving away from it and back to the old ways of doing things.
It's like, you know, at least you've sort of been through the mill, haven't you? Sort of like, you know, you start basic, then you get all the things. And I think in life, and people are like that, you know. And once you sort of get a bit older and a bit more long in the tooth, you've sort of done it all, and you can just go back to basics, as you say, can't you?
Do you know what? You're absolutely spot on, Richard. And I agree with you. I think it is to do with, as you get older, you do become long in the tooth and you become very skeptical of things, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started many, many years ago, like you guys, I was expecting ghosts to be coming out of the woodwork. Everywhere you went, you were going to get ghosts. You were going to get this, you were going to get apparitions. You were going to get taps on the shoulders. You were going to get cold winds and breezes. And then after doing it for a few years, you realise, well, hang on, this isn't really happening. As I've said to people, you know, the amount of activity that I would call credible, I would say was credible for me, I can probably count on both hands and still maybe have a finger or two left over. You know, it's amazing how, I think I was saying to you last night, Paul, I'm not skeptic of the paranormal. I'm skeptic of people's perception of what's paranormal.
Yeah.
You
know,
that's
a good way of putting it.
That is a good way of putting it, yeah.
So yeah, that's it really. And of course you do it with newbies, and you see them fall into the pitfalls that you go into, and you try and warn them. But the best way is to let people learn by their own mistakes, I think.
Yeah, they've got to evolve through their own journey themselves. But I think I think the trouble is, people get so caught up with all the tech and the equipment, they forget how to feel.
Yes. Yeah.
Because when you go to these locations, and some of them are freaking amazing, aren't they? We're going to talk about some of the investigations you've done, and seriously, you've picked out some stunning examples of this, where you go to these places and it's like breathing history right there, isn't it? And people get so caught up with setting up their CCTV and setting up their tech and their experiments and this, they forget that the building and the feel of it is just incredible just by itself, right?
Do you know what? You couldn't have put it better. And that's exactly how I feel. And people say to me, well, how important is the history of these buildings, or the history of what you're investigating to you? And I said, well, it's every bit as important as the spirits. Because the thing is that I'm in a building that these souls inhabited in life, and they lived in different time periods. And I think if you're a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, then a big part of it is the history of it. I think you've got to love both sides of it. And I said, I'm in a church now, and I did an investigation in the church, and something happened, and it was the church over in Greenstead, I think, over in Essex way, and I heard this knock and then some footsteps, and I was done a bit to camera, and I said, the amazing thing is that I'm probably in this building now with somebody that could be possibly buried outside, if not somebody who knew this building really well, of a different time period, and the fact that I'm connecting not just with that spiritual energy, but the fact that I'm connecting with the history as well, is just to put those two together, and it's a magic potion, isn't it?
It's mind-blowing, isn't it, sometimes?
Absolutely. And you're right. People concentrate too much on let's get this spirit, let's do it, but they're not they're not understanding the enormity of what they're doing. They're not understanding the enormity of not only that person as an individual. I mean, these are people that not nobles, just ordinary people, And, probably their identities in these little villages are just lost in the annals of time. And to think that you could be connecting with one of them, and giving them a chance to converse with you in however they can and get some sort of dialogue going. When I say dialogue, I don't just mean speech, but anything, knocks, bangs, whatever. And to recognise that, not only recognise that they're in your presence, but for them to recognise that they're in your presence, that type of thing. There's no words for it. There's absolutely no words for it. And that's what I love. I love the social history. The kings and queens, we've all had that pushed down our throat since we were at school. But my real passion is the social history of these little villages and towns. These people that, would have been considered non-entities at the time, but are very important because they're living, breathing humans with lives, with families, with connections, throughout the towns and what have you, local characters. And that's what does it for me. That whole connecting to that sort of, that lost time period and those lost souls.
Oh, very eloquently put, my lovely.
Well
very
done, yeah.
eloquently put.
Thank you.
I think we can all agree with that, can't we, guys?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So I want to take you back. When or where did you first? Because I know it can be difficult to pin down your first investigation, but let's say your first. Go on then. Tell me all about it, baby.
It was. I was a kid. Right? I was a kid. I think I was about 10, and it wasn't. It was our my first foray, and my friends into investigating. So it was the three of us that used to do the investigation. We thought we did. We weren't investigating. We just run around like idiots. And there was a big house over where we used to live, but it was sort of semi-derelict. And being kids, we thought, well, we're going to Saturday, we're going to go there and we're going to investigate. And we went there, and to all intents and purposes, it was probably a stiff breeze, but it blew one of the nets out, and that was it. We were off. So it didn't even last 5 minutes, to be honest with you. So, but the first one that I ever did, wow, that's a good question, actually. Again, like most things, it's lost in the annals of time. But the first one I ever did, trying to think. Oh, I tell you, the first one I did, which I went there for the first 2 times. There's a place called, of all things, it wasn't a venue, it wasn't a building or anything like that, nothing as grand as that. But it was a place called Sally Rainbow's Dell, which is over here in Hertfordshire. And the story goes, and we followed it. We tried to trace the woman back, and we did. We managed to trace her back. She was clearly called Sally, and she lived in town, in Hertford town, but she was like a wise woman. She was like a medicine woman. She was just one of these women that dispensed herbal medications and done what was right for the people. Just by all accounts, a lovely, gentle woman. But then came the times when people were all out against what they believed to be witchcraft, the superstitious times. Mm-hmm. And she had to move out of the town, and she found a cave about 3 miles, maybe 2.5, 3 miles. You'd got to walk to it, right down this wooded lane, tucked out in the middle of nowhere. And we investigated there. And the thing that blew me away with that is that not only did we pick an EVP up with a lady's voice, but it was it was colloquial. It was a sort of old Hertfordshire dialect. And she asked, there was a girl there who was frightened, and she said, "Sally, please come and help me." And then we picked up on the voice recorder, what he want. It was real old dialect. But the thing that blew me away about it is, and this is going to sound completely mental, and but there was lots and lots of rustling in the leaves of the trees, and it was a still night. And the first thing I've noticed, and you guys you've experienced it yourselves, I'm sure, and I know now when something's about to happen, the dark gets darker.
Yeah.
It's like a cloak is thrown over you, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And it just becomes that impenetrable darkness. And that's what happened in these woods. You could hardly see anything in front of you, just make out the shape of the trees. And then we heard whispering, and there was lots and lots of little voices and lots of bits and bobs. Well, the girl that I went investigating with, she was a witch, and she said to us, "Look, don't panic." She went, "Those are just the voices of the voices of nature spirits.
Mm.
And of course, once you'd explained that, it was fine. It felt fine. It felt comfortable, and we were happy being there. And she said they're just inquisitive as to what we're doing, and they're trying to find. And when we listened to the voice recorder back, you could still hear these little voices on the voice recorder. So that was probably the first place that I'd done. That was my first foray into investigating, properly investigating. I was only, I don't know, 15, 16 probably at the time. So I was, very young at the time. And then, like always happens, team split up, people move away, and then you move on to newer pastures, And
Yeah, I think we've all been through a few teams.
So not quite exciting, but it was exciting for me at the time, and I still find it very exciting.
That's what keeps you in it, though.
It is.
It's not just the excitement of the night when you go. It's the background that you're researching and you're reading, and it's all of that. And then when you go out on an investigation, or ghost hunt, whatever you want to term it as, and you get that feeling. And all right, you might not have captured a full-bodied apparition. You might not have got any EVPs. You might not have caught anything that you would be put out there. But you've had that personal experience, and you feel like you've connected to something that's bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
Which is sometimes intangible to put into words. That's what keeps you going back out.
Absolutely. And I've said to people, people say, well, who are you doing this for? And I said, well, I'm doing it for myself, because I know that whatever you put out on the internet is going to be scrutinized. And no matter if you could guarantee that you've got an apparition that was caught on camera, people are going to tear it down anyway. Mm-hmm. So you do it for yourself, and you do it for the people that you're working with. So, but every experience is personal.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that's the thing. And you get out of it what you want. And if you can then tell people that this happened, that happened, or you could share it with the people on the evening, and they could have had similar experiences, then it all comes together. And as I've said before, you could do months and months and months of investigating and get very, very little. But then if you get something that, once you've gone in, taken all the environmental factors into consideration, once you've then broken it down and you can't really find an answer for it, it's those little things that blow your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those little things that, there's something going on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we're doing it,
It could be a fear. It could even just be a feeling.
Absolutely. It's like I was saying earlier, I'm saying with the equipment, when people said to me, what's the best thing you can take? And I said, well, yourself.
Mm.
Sometimes that's all the equipment you need, yourself.
Mm-hmm. Richard?
Yeah, it's one of the first bits of equipment I take is myself. And I find it works quite well.
He even had to buy a bigger bag to put himself in.
Yeah. We all did, love. Paul?
I've got no question, to be fair.
Okay, well, let's move on then and have a look at some of these fascinating, because you've investigated so prolifically in so many amazing locations over your time investigating, and some of these are on our bucket list, I would have to say. The first being,
to be honest with you, some of them I've just been at the right place at the right time. It wasn't a concerted effort to go to a particular place. It's just that I've been at the right place at the right time, and somebody's offered me a place. That's just like anybody else, it's not anything that I've had on a bucket list, but it's not anything that I ever thought I would get to do. And I was just lucky because the right person at the right time has come up to me and said, I've got a spare ticket for this, or we're going to do this. Would you like to come with us? So I'm not going to take credit for saying, oh yeah, and I went out there and I looked for this and I hunted this down. I wanted to do that, and because too many people are doing that. I was just lucky, blessed, really.
Well, the first one on the list that you brought to the table, because you've brought forward some, we talked before the show, and there's a few locations that you mentioned. The first was Mary King's Close in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
What an absolutely incredible location for a start.
That's phenomenal.
So, I'm hoping to go there at the end of the year.
Yeah, you've got that booked in kind of thing, haven't you, Paul?
Yeah. It's on my
Historically,
bucket
it's
list.
just amazing.
So
didn't
tell
get
me
any
about
activity
that.
there.
So tell me about that, because all I know is it's a street underneath Edinburgh that's enclosed.
Yeah, it's I mean, the thing is, during the sort of late 1700s, early 1800s, to the mid 1800s, Edinburgh became it was a bit of a. I mean, Edinburgh's gorgeous. It's one of my favourite cities, but it became a very, very dodgy slum city. And then you had a lot of people that were trying to escape the potato famine from Ireland. They came across this. There was a very strong Irish contingent in Edinburgh itself. But there were lots of slums, lots of poverty, and lots of slum landlords that just exploited the people in Edinburgh. And so what happened was they didn't really want them on the main areas, so they kind of had to go underground. Now, close as well as the other vaults on the other side, they had whole cities under there. So there was like gambling dens, there were bars, it was just a normal run-of-the-mill city, but underground. When you go down there, it's like you are cut off from the world. It's cold, it's sort of damp, as you would expect, and that's in this day and age, when they run heaters and that in there. What it was like in the days gone by, I have no idea. But the guys did say when we went in there that it used to be open. Top of it was open, but over the years it became pedestrianised above it, so they just filled it in and what have you. And a lot, going to some of the vaults in there, there's a particular area in there, if you go in there, and they put like toys for a little girl spirit. So there's a girl spirit in there, and lots of people bring toys there. And you walk in there like I did, and then I brushed against the side, and you've got like a white chalk residue. It's all over you. And then the guy says, "Yeah," he says that's not lime. Those are human ashes.
What?
He said that what they used to do, they used to mix the human ashes with water, and they'd use it as paint.
Well, it's like a whitewash.
Yeah, like plague victims and stuff. They used to, because they had a lot of the plague hit down there and everything. This is going back prior to back to the 1600s. So I've been there for a long while, but it really took hold during the 17 to 1800s when people sort of ventured down there. But yeah, so the plague victims, the bones and that, they would mush the bones up or the ashes, and they would just use them to sort of screed the walls and what have you. Didn't really get anything down there, to be honest with you. It was pretty quiet, pretty dead. Get the odd footsteps, but it's a very large echoey area, and so you can't really, because the team that went down there was quite a large team, like 15 of you. I know you should by rights be keeping an idea on the coordinates of where everybody is at any given time, and of course you're meant to call out stuff if you've done something, what have you, if that was me, or I made a noise, and even if they've got to write it down and then sort of go back to it later. Oh yeah, that was me. I did that. Look, I've written it in the book. But you couldn't coordinate it because they were people. They got all excited, and a few of them venture off, and with the best will in the world, with the team or with a group that's 15 people. It was two teams that shared it. With a group that was 15 people, you just couldn't keep control over people. They were just too excited. But yeah, I mean, there could have been activity down there, but it was. I don't think we picked up on any. And as I say, the odd footsteps could have just been noise pollution from other people because it's very echoey. So yeah.
So do you get any like vibrations or anything from above? Because above it, you've got a building, haven't you, that's built over it, the Treasury.
Yeah.
And then you must have you've got the main road, haven't you, as well? So do you hear any of that while you're under there?
I didn't hear any of it, feel anything. But to be fair, we vibrate anyway, don't we? We vibrate naturally. So there could have been vibrations to the road going through, but I didn't feel it. But they could quite easily have. It could quite easily have been vibrations going through the place. It's just that I didn't pick up on the vibrations. I didn't feel it. Nobody else mentioned vibrations either.
So the only people, the only spirits that you could have connected with was off of the wall.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that was it. You go in on your own. You come out with 5 people.
Yeah, 5
people.
Yeah,
but yeah, we didn't. I mean, even I expecting like maybe we get something when we left there, or maybe something might have followed, but nothing. absolutely nothing. In fact, the creepiest place we did was Greyfriars, which is as you know, it's the sort of cemetery there with the mausoleums. And there was a very well-known book written, The Ghost That Haunted Itself. And it was the Mackenzie Vault, and it was the Poltergeist Vault, and various people have died in there over the years. A lot of people have had heart attacks in there, apparently, when they've gone in there just to investigate and stuff. But again, whether that's people winding themselves up into a crescendo, I don't know. But apparently that's something. The cemetery is very impressive. It's very old. All the venues there, all the places I went to, it was the cemetery that was the freakiest, I think. You know, it was most atmospheric, but it was interesting. It's the history again, isn't it? It's just amazing. And of course, you got to remember as well, these little nooks and crannies, these places are where Burke and Hare sort of plied their trade.
Yeah.
You know, the resurrectionists and what have you, and that was it. There was quite a few bodies that had gone missing from that cemetery during that time period. There's a surprise. But nevertheless, it was an interesting place.
I do believe paranormal blogger Haley is a Ghost wrote a blog on that particular place, and they did a lot of experiments regarding was it infrasound or EMF?
Yeah.
And actually, they found that there was something. It was something to do with that. I can't remember the details off the top of my head, but I'm sure if you go over, check over Haley is a Ghost, because that's fascinating, the work that's been done there. Skeptical people trying to put a rational explanation on what people would jump to a paranormal assumption. What do you think about that?
I think it's great. To be honest with you, I've always said that you have to, before you can take evidence to the table, that evidence has to be seen to be evident to you. So you have to scrutinise every aspect and every avenue that you can to try and, I hate the word debunk, but to try and debunk what happened. And if you go through all the environmental factors that are there, everything else, and you run it by each other and you run through it and you get the scenario and you try and replicate it. If you can't replicate it and it happens, or you can't find an environmental factor for it, then you can take it to the table and say, look, we scrutinized this the best we could. We think it was. See, I never tell anybody. People say to me, is it a ghost? And I say, look, I'm not going to tell you it was a ghost or not. All I'm going to say to you, the best I can tell you, is it was unexplained. Do I believe in ghosts? Of course I believe in ghosts. I believe in spirits. But I can't quantify what they are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all supposition and guesswork, I believe they're the spirits of people that have passed. Yeah, I believe that some of them are incarnate spirits. I believe that a lot of them are the spirits of people that have passed on. But I can't give people a sort of an iron cast guarantee that that's what they are, because I believe that some of them could be something else as well. It's I mean, I've dealt with lots of things over the years. I even dealt with nature spirits. Did an investigation over in Boreham Wood. It was the pub over there, and that had a resident nature spirit in it, perfectly harmless. It was a case of, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. Just be respectful, as you should be anyway. And we never had any problems. In fact, the spirit was interested in what we were trying to do. And then we had other spirits come forward, and these spirits had told us through various means that they were residents of the pub at certain times. But yeah, it's interesting. But you've got to scrutinise everything. You just can't take it to the table, because people will invariably rip it apart.
Yeah. Do you research the locations before you go, or do you do the investigation and then research afterwards?
I do the investigation and research afterwards. I tell the people that own the venue or what have you, unless it's a big venue and people are sharing it and it's well known anyway, like the vaults and stuff like that, then you've got all that information in your head anyway, because you've seen it on various programs and various YouTube channels, and lots of people have been there. But I try to keep pub, or it's a building that we've never been before. I don't want to know anything about it. I don't want to know a thing about it. And I mean, you've got to trust the people that you work with, and I do trust Viv implicitly. And she doesn't either research it, and she doesn't really even use mediumship on it, because she says, you know, mediumship's for something else. This is paranormal investigation. We want to try and do this with our skills, not our gifts, as it were.
Yeah, no,
You know, that's what we always do. We pride ourselves on that. And I'll be honest with you, I believe that there are people out there that are mediums. Of course, I do, hands down. I believe there are people out there with special gifts. I can't quantify what those gifts are because I'm not experiencing them. But I know that I've had enough experiences to not make me question other people's experiences.
Yeah,
because then it's unfair, you know. But there are an awful lot of people out there that profess to be mediums or psychics, and they're clearly not. For definite they're not, but I feel that they're not. I feel that they just want to jump on that bandwagon. But there are an awful lot of good people out there that have got those abilities. I'm not one. I've never professed to have any abilities in that direction. You know, I mean, I said to Viv, your spirit could come up and tap me on the shoulder, ask me for a cigarette, and I'd give it a cigarette and still wouldn't know it was a spirit. You know what I mean? It's like that. In fact, we did an investigation recently. It was an old farmhouse, and it was in Lincolnshire. And we went in, and there were 3 guys in the main downstairs area, and then there were 2 guys upstairs, and there was a husband and wife were there as well. And we did this investigation, and I walked in, and I noticed that there was on the side was one of these, they call it like a paranormal music box. And I'd invested money in one stupidly. And this thing went off, and I turned around to the older bloke who was with the group, said, blindly, I said, that's gone off. I said, look, just out of interest, is that going off because of activity? I said, or is it kind of setting itself? Is it resetting itself and getting ready for whatever may come? And he went, no, that goes off a lot. He went, it's particularly when there's like a spirit energy near it. He said, it goes off all the time. And I'm thinking, yeah, right, okay, spirit energy near it. Because, you know, you can't quantify what it does if you don't know what a spirit is. About 10 or 15 minutes. And then we went on to a second venue, and the 2 guys came, and the other bloke weren't with them. And I said, where's the other guy? And they said, what other guy? And I said, the little old boy, the bloke with the bald head and the sweatshirt. They went, what do you mean, little old bloke? I said, the little old bloke was like, I was talking about They went, there was no little old bloke there. I said, what? They said there was no little fella there. So I did. I thought, oh, they're taking the piss. They're winding me up, pardon my French. So I went round to all the different people that were there and said, this little bloke, there is no little bloke there. Now, I can't say that was a spirit. But as I said to Viv, it goes to show you, doesn't it? A spirit can be chatting to me and I wouldn't have a clue. You know, that's how stunted I am as far as being a medium or a psychic. I just haven't got that ability. It's interesting.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you, actually. For the amount of years you've been in the field, you see it all the time, don't you? That people enter the field and they're just going out doing the normal ghost hunting experience, and then as they go further on in their journey, they become more sensitive,
absolutely,
to things and start picking things up, and then they start having faith in what they are getting, and they develop a kind of sixth sense, or
they do.
A level of mediumship. And I was going to actually ask you, have you had that experience? But obviously you haven't.
Do you know what? It's really weird because I could walk into a building. I used to do a lot of houses years ago because I used to work with a guy who was an exorcist. And we'd go to houses, and he'd do clearance, he'd also do exorcisms and stuff like that. And I got to the point where and I still can do it now. I walk into a house and go, oh, this is heavy. And somebody said to me, what does it feel like? You know, and I said, well, you know, when you walk into a room and there's been a big argument, I said, when you could cut the atmosphere with a knife, the saying. They went, yeah. I said, it feels like that to me. It feels like there's something not right there. Something awkward, something out of place, something that shouldn't be there, something, for want of a better description, something nasty or evil, you know. It was like to me. So, yeah, I have. But the weird thing is that a lot of the experiences that I've had, or a few of the experiences I've had, haven't actually been while I've been investigating. They've been on the way home when I kind of zone out and I relax and listen to the radio. And I'm not really thinking of anything in particular. And there have been a couple of occasions, and one in particular, where it just threw me completely. And that was on the way back from Lincolnshire. We'd done an old stately home in Lincolnshire. It was derelict, most of it, but this a normal family had bought it. They got it cheap, and they wanted to obviously do it up. So they wanted to raise funds. So they thought, oh, well, what we'll do is we'll hire it out to paranormal teams. And we did an investigation there. Didn't really get anything there at all. Well, didn't get anything there at all, really. But on the way home, I drove through Lincolnshire. You know what Lincolnshire's like? It's flat, isn't it?
It's flat as a pancake, yeah.
Exactly. I'd come off this roundabout, and then I went onto this straight strip of road. And as there was a car in front of me. There was nothing for miles. And I mean, this was really out in the sticks, really out in the back of nowhere. And as he's gone past this, like a farm drive, his headlights caught something. And so I slowed down a bit, raining, and there was a girl standing there, and she was side on to me, and she was dressed like something from the 70s. Her hair was just coming out of her hood. She had her hood up. You could see the hair had come out of it, and she was turned sort of slightly skew-if to me, so I couldn't really see her face. And she was not bent down. Her head was hanging down, and she had this what looked like the old. I don't know if you remember. Remember the old? I think they were called Mace. The old stores. They were like little supermarkets.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Oh yeah,
them,
Mace.
Do you remember Mace? Yeah, she had a Mace bag, and I thought, mate, okay, that's weird. And it was raining, and she was just standing. And she had Wellington boots on as well. And the thing that I get when I see something that doesn't ring right, the first thing that comes into my head is, what is wrong with this picture? There's something wrong with this picture. What is wrong with what you're seeing? And I drove on, and immediately I thought, oh, that's a spirit. That's a spirit. And so I drove on, got about 100 yards further on, and I thought, but you know what? What if that isn't a spirit? What if that's a young girl that's had an argument with her boyfriend? He's chucked her out in the thing, or she's run away from home. And then I got to thinking about my daughter. And I thought, you know what? If that was my daughter, I'd only be too happy for somebody to pick her up and take her to a police station or take her back home to her mum and dad. Mm. So I've got to turn around. I can't. But I knew what she was, or I think I knew what she was. So I turned around and I got back, and she was gone. And there was nothing for miles and miles and miles. No housing, nothing. Just this old farm tractor track where she was standing. And I walked up to near where she was standing. Nothing. Looked down the sides of the fields. Or she fell over, or she jumped down. What's gone on? But she'd just gone. She just literally vanished. And I came away, and that shook me because it was like I wasn't expecting it. Mm-hmm. And even if you're expecting it, if something like that happens, you're still going to be, sort of knocked sideways. But and it's played in my mind, and I've tried to research the area, but there's been redeveloped a lot of it. But I'd like to know if, I mean, in the back of your head, I do think to myself, and that sounds grim, but is she laying in that field somewhere? Is she lost to her family? But you can't go to the police and say, look, I've just seen this spirit. Let's dig up them fields. You just can't do that, But it does make you think, you feel like it's your duty then. You feel responsible for what could have possibly happened to this girl, or at least responsible for maybe trying to give some information to somebody. But you couldn't trace it all back because it was lost. I mean, it's only the 70s, but they completely revamped the whole area. But yeah, so there's little things like that. I've experienced, but as I say, that is very unique for me to experience. Things like full body apparitions is very unique. Yeah. I've probably only experienced maybe three, maybe four. But the fourth one, I'm not too sure about. I think that might have been a living person. But yeah, three that I think I've seen. But as to what they are, I don't know. but it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember I was sitting at, I was waiting for people to turn up for an event of mine, and I was at a place called Hadley Castle. You can't actually drive up.
I know how. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't actually drive up to the castle, but you're
No.
further down on the path. And we parked the car there, and me and my brother was sitting there waiting for people to turn up. And this guy walked past in like a full World War One soldier outfit. He had the gun and everything, and he marched past. And I looked at him, and then I looked at my brother. I was like, "Did you actually see that?"
Did you see it?
Yeah. It was a proper person, so I'm assuming they done reenactment or something down there. But we both looked at him, and like, you did actually see that one, didn't you?
Codner, didn't you?
Yeah.
Up at Codner for investigation, there was about in the car park, and this woman had walked past, and she was dressed like an old milkmaid. And I've looked at guy's name, Luke. I've looked at Luke, and I went. Luke's looked at me, and we looked at this woman. And Dawn was there, lover. Dawn was there at the time, and Dawn's looked at me, and she's looked at this woman, and I thought I was just gonna say hello. So I went hello, and she didn't answer me. She walked over to where this tap was. I've got really close to her, and I was just about to touch her, and she turned around. She said, "You thought I was a ghost, didn't you?"
That's brilliant.
I said, "Yes, I did think you were a ghost. Thanks."
Take me to hospital.
Oh, I was terrible. I was tentatively trying to put my hand out, shaking, thinking, "Oh shit, this is it, Dan. This is it." And I had these visions of, like the library ghost.
Yeah.
I had that vision. She's going to turn around and open a big rotten hell mouth and just attack me.
Yeah.
But no, you thought I was a ghost, she said.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. Yeah, I did.
You said the wrong words. It wasn't hello. It should have been get out.
But Richard, you've had an experience driving one night, haven't you?
Yes. And this was coming home from an investigation. I can't remember which one. I think it was one of the times I visited the Haunted Antiques Research Centre.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was early in the morning, about 4 o'clock. I was driving up the hill that led into sort of like the village just before the town where I live, and it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was coming up, and I saw, which was an African lady, I say a coloured lady, in what looked like full African dress. They wear those bright colours and stuff.
Yeah. They like the headdress things they wear, and they've got the same matching dresses, yeah.
And she was just walking down the hill as I sort of drove past. I mean, I didn't really think much of it at the time, but I thought, what an odd thing to see.
Yeah.
There was no one else about that time, so.
Well, she was.
Well, yeah, she was. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know quite. I'm still left a bit puzzled.
But Dan said something very integral there. You go, what's wrong with this picture?
Yeah.
It's not. Sometimes when you have something happen, it's not slapping your face. Like you spoke about that guy who was talking to me about that music thing that went off, and
I'm not saying he was a spirit by any stretch of the imagination. All I'm saying is that nobody else said he was there, or maybe he flew under the radar. Maybe everybody thought he was with somebody else and just neglected what have you. So but it was weird. It was odd.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it always seems to be Kerry, and same as like Richard. It's that downtime when you're not concentrating on ghost hunting and you're just in that sort of that zone. You're driving home, you're chilling out, you're relaxing, and bang, something will happen. And it's funny because I said to one of the girls that I was investigating with that night, I said, "Look, you never guess what happened." And she said, before I said anything, she said, "You've had an experience on the way home." I went, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" She went, "Because loads of us have those." And I, "Oh, really?" Yeah, she said, "Lots of us see things that on the way home that are beyond, you just can't, you've got no answer for it."
Well, yeah, I mean, when I used to run a team. We had one of our people that I used to go and get a lift with all the time. She kept saying that when she'd gone to a place that had children spirits around, they would always come back with her, and she could feel them on the back seat, kicking the back of her seat as she was
That's
driving
quite
along.
cute, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just what kids do, though, isn't it?
It's
You know,
quite
they
sweet.
sit there and kick the seat in front, you know, and they go
Probably got
like,
an
"Are you there
maternal
yet?"
Feeling from her, haven't they? They probably got an maternal feeling from her.
Yeah,
you know.
and then they realised what she was really like, and they went home.
Yeah, they stopped the car and got out.
No, but I think the thing is, it's getting your mind into that space, isn't it? Where you've got a, you know, when we talk about meditation, you empty your mind, and actually, when you're driving home, you've done a whole night. You've had the highs and the lows, and the laughs, and the, you know, the down times during the investigation. When you're on autopilot, to be fair, on the way home.
That's it. Yeah, and when you're on the events, you're focused.
Exactly.
So, you know, you're not completely aware of your full surroundings. You're just focused on whatever you're doing at the time. But when you're driving, you know, you've got to be aware of everything, haven't you? So you've got to open your mind up a little bit more. Yeah.
And I find that. Oh, sorry, Kerry, go on.
So it's like an active meditation. So you're still focused because you're driving, but your brain isn't working. It's not doing anything, is it? It's just going.
No.
I'm driving home, listening, like you say, listening to some music generally, just chilling, driving along. You're not really thinking about stuff. On the way there, your brain's going, we're going to so and so, and you know, we're going to do this, and I'm going to see so and so, and your brain's full. It's active. It's on the go. You've done all that. It's the end of the night. Then it's like your brain can switch off a bit, as it were. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you've had your highs, and now you're just relaxing, aren't you, on the way home? And it's almost like you're in some sort of comatose state, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
you're
I
like
can drive home from
zoned out.
Yeah, fully awake, but then I can't remember how I got home.
That
sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
So an autopilot, isn't it? You can even you can drive to the shops and think to yourself when you get there, it's like, how did I get here? Don't remember the trip. Yeah.
And that's what I've said to people as well. You got to remember as well, your mind is the biggest trickster. It can play the human brain and mind can play so many tricks on you. But it's like, for example, I found as well, and one of the most evident times was we did an investigation. I did an investigation with Terry, who runs Hearts Paranormal Investigators, HPI, and the cage at St. Joseph. We didn't get anything at the cage. But then at the end of the night, when we were sitting down having a cup of tea, laughing and joking, then things happened. And it's almost like, how dare you ignore me? Or, as you say, you're not focusing on anything in particular, so you're starting to be aware of what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, must admit, I've done the cage, and again, we didn't get anything. I think the most exciting part of that whole investigation was nipping to the Chinese next door.
We did exactly the same.
they made a roaring trade out of the ghost hunters who did the cage.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We sat
same.
in there. We sat in there and had a bit of dinner. We tried the Ouija board, nothing.
Yeah.
We tried other experiments, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You know, we got a few knocks on that upstairs, but then it could have quite easily been the pub kicking out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, and people have gone in there, haven't they? You go in there with this kind of idea of, whoa, this was a witch's prison. You know, they kept innocent women here, and then they executed them. They did all sorts of horrible things to these poor people. And then that's in your head, then, isn't it? You set the scene.
Yeah,
well, that's it.
You're psychologically primed, aren't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't do any of that there, but it was just the rumours that was going around.
It's just enough.
It turns out it's all nonsense, a lot of it. Yeah. Exactly.
It's like East Drive. There's so much of the stuff on the walls, or the paper clippings and all that.
Exactly right.
Straight away, you're primed.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like a film set, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that whole case happened in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah, 69.
Yeah, 60s,
nothing ever since, and now it's like all blown up again. It's like,
well, it's blown up because of the film, isn't it? And the way it's been marketed as that. And because it is still, like you say, stage set for that era, you go in there and it's like basically like as it used to be. You know what I mean?
Not entirely, because I don't ever remember a flat screen 24-inch.
No, maybe okay, maybe not.
Yeah, but no, the rest of it, all the decor and everything. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And the fact that you can watch the film.
Yeah.
I did an investigation there, and it was so flat the evening that we did the I did a few, like you guys have done a few there, and it was so flat this particular evening that one of the guys fell asleep on the sofa. This was at 11 o'clock at night. One of the guys fell asleep in the armchair. I fell asleep in the other armchair, and then we woke up with the birds singing at 7. And I said, do you know what? We didn't have any cameras running. Ghosts could have been running about in front of us, putting things on our heads, sticking their fingers up, blowing raspberries, and we've got
probably
nothing.
had a right ball.
Yeah. But every time I've been there, I think the only thing was that there was a knocking by the little piano. It was like a tapping, and everybody's going, "Oh, it's tapping, oh, it's this and that and that." And I said, "Yeah, but you know what? There's also like a heating thing. There's like a bit of a radiator pipe behind that. So if that's heating up the wood or what have you, maybe it's contracting, and then that's the wood." Of course, that wasn't it, was it? That wasn't it. No.
Of course it was. It was a ghost. It was the Black Monk of Pontefract. Of course it was. Anyway, on that note, we've actually come to the end of the first half of the show. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk some more to Dan about some fantastic investigations he's done at some amazing locations around the country. On that note, join us right after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
And welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And we still have the lovely Dan Winters with us. And before we go any further, before the break, you mentioned another of the fantastic locations, Codnor Castle.
Love Codnor, yeah.
Now, this is the place that my lovely Paul, I think
yes.
Richard was there. Was you there, Richard?
No, I wasn't there.
You wasn't there. I feel like we were.
But never actually got into the place. But yes, but that's another story.
Yeah. This is the place, the location that Paul and Viv Powell, as you know, we've had her on the show before, and works with Dan really closely. Had a really strange experience using the telephone experiment.
Yep, that's the one.
And you've investigated this place as well, haven't you, Dan?
I can honestly say, hands down, that's the most active place I think I've ever investigated. The stuff that I've had out of here, it just blew my socks off.
Is that the actual castle or the actual sort of like cottages that are attached?
Yeah, it's like the farm cottages that are there. Is it listed? I can't remember. Is it a listed building, Paul? Do you know?
I think they are, yeah. But they're falling down anyway, so it's dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, it's full of sort of bacteria and stuff, isn't it now?
I don't know. There's probably black mold all over the place anyway.
I think there is. Yeah, I think there is. But yeah, that place was phenomenal. I mean, that was off the scale. I picked an EVP up out of there. We did 2 cottages. The one that we set up in, which had the fire, we used that as sort of a hub area.
Yeah.
And that was where you could have a kettle and stuff going. I mean, it was very rudimentary, wasn't it? It was very basic, and it was really falling apart.
Yeah.
And if I ever got the money, I would buy that and just do it up and just use it for paranormal research.
I'd go in with you, Dan. That'd be absolutely fantastic.
Wouldn't it be amazing? Wouldn't it?
Absolutely it would.
Amazing. And I'll ask you a question, which Paul's like me. I think you're the same as me. Where's your favourite place? And I was, it's such a. But that, if I was pushed, that is, I think, certainly my top 2. Yeah. And the activity we had out there. We were doing an investigation. It's myself and Dawn, and we went into the second cottage. And the other team, had gone off. They'd gone further up the track somewhere because they wanted to do, I don't know, something they wanted to do. And I don't particularly like walking that far, so I opted to stay in the cottage with Dawn. So we stayed there and we did a vigil, and we saw lights that were coming through the cracks of the door. And it was like, we thought, oh, it's torchlight. Blimey, they've come back really quickly. But then it dawned on us, we didn't actually hear any footsteps. So, now, please come in. Your property, it's your home. We're visiting here. You know, the usual, we thank you for allowing us in here to investigate. And if there's anything you want to tell us, that, you know, that type of stuff. And we did get taps on the door, more lights. And I was tentative to pull the door open because, you know, with the best will in the world and bravest, try and put your big boy pants on. But when you open that door, you don't know what's facing you, don't know what's going to be there. Yeah. And so, you know, you're tentatively thinking, if I open this and it's something I don't like, I'm going to crap myself right here. But I did, pulled it open, nothing there. And then we started to get footsteps outside, walking up and down. I thought, I said to Dawn, that's one of them, they're winding us up. Pulled it open again, nothing there. Then there was this light coming through. Anyway, I'm doing a vigil and something. And halfway through me asking the question, I answered Dawn. And then I went back to speak to, I believe it was one of the spirits that was there. And I said, look, I'm ever so sorry. Please forgive me. It was rude of me to cut a question halfway through. And then when I played the EVP back, it had the voice on it said that it was like a Derbyshire accent. That's all right, darling. Female. And I thought, well, that doesn't get better than that, does it? But then I heard a massive scream in my left ear. And I said to Dawn, whoa, did you hear that? And Dawn went, I didn't hear anything. I said, come on, Dawn, you must have heard that. I said, that was really loud. I said, it made me jerk my head away. She said, well, I saw you move, but I didn't hear anything. So I thought, well, we've got the voice recorder going, let's replay it. And you could hear the scream.
Oh, really?
You could hear it audibly.
Right.
Yeah. Dawn couldn't hear it at the time. I picked it up audibly because it was in my ear. And then when you played the voice recorder back, you could hear it. That was one experience in there. And that was there was something very warm about those cottages, very nice. Yeah. And I walked out and there was a couple of the women outside chatting. And one of them said to me, oh, have you heard the lady singing? I went, what? She went, have you heard the lady singing? So I went, no. And I must have given her a funny look like, oh, you mental. And she went, no. She said, there's the woman singing. And I said, well, I've not heard her. So then I walked back into the original one, got a cup of tea, sat down. I was talking to Viv, and Viv shushed me. She went, shush, listen. And you could hear this lullaby coming from next door, as clear and as audible. And this was like a summer's night.
Was that a little girl singing that?
No, this was like a grown woman. And she was like, like, and I didn't recognise, it must have been an old nursery rhyme or something. I didn't recognise it.
Yeah.
And so I ran into the second cottage, up the stairs. I got there, nothing. And then Dawn came in behind me, then a couple of others came in. And then one of the investigators asked, are you still in this building with us? And you could hear a giggle then come from what was near the old small toilet bathroom area.
Yeah.
And he said, that's come from there. So we ran there, nothing there. And then that was another experience. I mean, that was the thing that blew me away, hearing the lady's voice, because it was beautiful. It was beautiful and calm and pleasant, not frightening in the least.
When I went there, we done that phone experiment. We got primarily the bloke upstairs, but we took the phone and put it to the bottom of the stairs in the other cottage, and we picked up a little girl, and we were singing nursery rhymes, but leaving out the last word.
Oh, okay.
And she carried it on.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So we do like bar, bar, and then she bar, bar, black, and then she'd go sheep. Have you any? And then she'd go wall. It was as clear as day over the phone.
That's cute, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then we did. Have you been round the side, and then you go into like another room and then you can go downstairs into a little cellar bit? Have you been there?
No, we didn't do that bit.
And you go down to the cellars, and as you get to the bottom of the stairs, it turns sharply, and then you turn sharply with it, and then you can't see the stairs. You can just see the opening, and then you can sort of sit down on. I suppose they must have kept meats and stuff in there to keep it cold, and what have you. And footsteps walking across the top, and then it shuffled, and we were all gone quiet. Then they came down the steps, and one of the guys we were with dived quickly over to where it was, stuck his head round the corner, but there's nothing there. And then he pulled his head back, and then you heard it again. And he done it again. He went, "There's nothing there." And the next thing, then you heard they were like boots. They'd walked straight across above us on the floorboards, and that was amazing. And there were other bit, and it was really nice place.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened to it, but the last time I went there, me and Dawn were there, and I said to Dawn, "Something's changed here. Something feels out of kilter. It doesn't feel right. Something dark's the right word, but something negative's happened. Something's not right." They'd thrown the doors open to loads and loads of different paranormal teams, and I guess people had abused it. And I don't know what had happened, whether the spirits just decided not to be active, or felt that they'd been disrespected, or I don't know. But it seemed to go completely flat.
See, I think this is the problem sometimes with paranormal teams that claim they're investigators, but really, all they've done is learn off of the telly, and they open up all sorts of portholes and stuff like that, and it causes all sorts of trouble. And they're not doing it maliciously or anything like that. It's just what they've learned from the telly, and it does create problems. It really does.
Yeah. Do you know what I always say to people? The difference between a good ghost hunter or a paranormal investigator and a bad one is the same between somebody who's gone through school or what have you, gone to learn how to be a good bricklayer, and somebody who's fell out of work and decided, "I'll buy myself a trowel and spirit level and I'll have a go at it." Now, you'll get a good wall with the first one that will last forever. With the second wall, undoubtedly, you get a wall, but the quality of it's not going to be anywhere near as good, and it's just going to fall apart on you after a couple of months.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they were bad investigators. I'd say that they were ill-educated, possibly.
Yeah.
In the respect that they're still learning and they haven't learned enough to be able to deal with that.
I think there's lots of them that go in it for the titillation, don't they? It's like they go in it because they want to be scared, or they want to be, it's almost like thrill seeking. And I've said to people, you can't do that. You're dealing with other people's families, you're dealing with people's relatives, you're dealing with people from all different walks of life. You've got to show as much respect to these people because they passed over. Doesn't mean that they don't qualify for as much respect as somebody who's living. In fact, they probably qualify for a bit more. So when you're dealing with them, deal with them respectfully.
See, I see a paranormal investigator today actually on social media, and he was advertising a live that he was going to do, and it was contacting the people of the Malaysian air flight that disappeared.
Oh, that's horrendous.
Yeah, I think that's a bit too I know it was happened quite a while ago, but you've still got friends and family now that remember them, and is it
memories?
I think that's a bit close to call, that one, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I made a video once years ago. It was just an opening credits to a video that I've made, and I made it in a cemetery up near where I live. The cemetery is really Victorian, and I didn't think anything about it, so I just did a sweeping sort of vista of the cemetery, put this sort of creepy music behind it, and then use that as a sort of intro. And then one of the girls that used to follow me, she said, "Oh, that's my brother's grave there." Of course, the ground could have opened up, and I was so devastated. And I said to her, "Sorry?" She went, "That's my brother." I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "I really, really didn't realise, because they're all Victorian, I didn't realise that it was just..." I said, "Look, I'll tell you what, I'll take it down." No, she went, "It's absolutely fine. Keep it up there." And I kept it up there for a little while, and I thought, yeah, but she might be fine with it. But then if her mum sees it, maybe she won't. It's just, you've got to be aware that people's relatives are still alive to go. You can't be doing things like that. I think I said to you, there was a guy in Hollywood, and I mean, Bill Saget, he's been dead a week, fortnight, not very long, has he?
Yeah, no, right, yeah.
And the guy they went up to the grave, and the grave obviously freshly dug, and he's gone up to it, and straight down on the grave, He's then pulled the camera up and taken sort of this sort of sweeping shot of where it was, so that it gives people the location of it.
Yeah.
And you think they buried their relative there. You just, some people some people shouldn't be let out, in my opinion, to be honest with you.
It's distasteful, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But every single time a famous person dies, you get certain people out there saying they're going to try and contact them or have contacted them. And it is distasteful, in my opinion.
And another thing that annoys me is when people go into a building and they go, right, I'm going to agitate. And they come out and they're completely disrespectful. And I've said, would you now go into a pub, walk up to a bloke sitting on a bar stool, prod him, start with him? And they go, well, no. Why do you think it's right to do it to somebody who's passed over then?
Yeah.
What gives you the right to, differentiate and call that shot? Because, that's something you could be dealing with somebody's parent, somebody's grandfather, grandmother. Would you like me to speak to your mother or your father, your grandparents like that? No. So what gives you the right to do it? And it really is a pet peeve of mine. And I've seen lots of people do it over the years, and I've just walked away because I won't tally with it. I will not have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
What do you make then? There's, I'm going to bring it to the table, the demon factor that's now in the paranormal. What do you think on that? Do you think there are negative energies that you would class as like non-human entities that would be classed as demonic?
I think, do you know what? I used to work with a really good medium, and she said to me once, she said, the thing you've got to take into consideration, Dan, she says, all this demon, this negativity, and this angelic thing, she said, and what people don't realise is these are just ancient earth energies. She said, they're neither one thing or the other, but they're a mixture of both.
Yeah,
she
they're
said,
anomalous.
and they're probably not going to be interested in you unless you piss them off or you do something to step on their toes. If you treat them respectfully, then they're going to be fine with you. It's all about how you deal with it. As for demons, I do believe there are negative energies out there. But then I've said to people, well, what quantifies a negative energy? A negative energy for me is somebody who's passed who was a prolific sex offender. Whether it be children, women, whatever you, somebody like that to me is a negative energy. Somebody like that to me is evil. So to me, that's kind of demonic in its, if you want to give it a name. But I know there's a lot of these, and dare I say it, particularly with a lot of the American, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of the American YouTubes and stuff, everything's demonic. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't quite work like that. And the thing is that to get a proper demonic haunting, it's just so rare. It's so rare. I'm not saying you don't deal with evil, but I don't think they're dealing with what they perceive to be demonic. And it's all done through this sort of Judeo-Christian thing, isn't it? It's either one or the other. Yeah, I believe in angels, I believe in demons, but not to the point that a lot, not everything is.
Not the way they're portrayed.
Exactly.
And I think it's that portrayal, isn't it? Like angels have got like dressed in white with beautiful white wings that descend from heaven and are amazingly gorgeous. The guardian type angelic, whereas demons are like gnarly little imp creatures that cause mischief and mishaps and all sorts. And that's a very religious perspective of that. In fact, we get a lot of that from artwork. Renaissance
and you say
artwork,
to people, these angels are tough. They're God's warriors. If you want to, they're soldiers. They're tough. These are real tough beings. But yeah, you're right. They got this fluffy cloud and a harp idea, haven't they?
Yeah.
Because obviously the iconography of it. But yeah, but it just annoys me when this whole everything's a demon. It's like, no, it's not. It's really not.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? It's a very difficult self-belief perception that you have to break through when you're dealing with energies out there. And your own belief systems are a huge factor in what you're perceiving is going on around you. And that sometimes you're not even aware that they're in place.
No, exactly. I mean, I once, we were talking to, a friend of mine was she's still a witch, and she was a high priestess of a coven up near us. And she said to me one day, she said that the thing is that people look down on her because of her practices and her belief system. And she came in for a lot of crap, not just from the church, but from the people in the area where she opened up a shop. And I always say to people, and it was probably one of the wisest things I've heard, she said, say to people, look, we're all on the same path. We're all on the same route. We just take different paths to get to where we go, to get to the same place.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, that's absolutely spot on.
I've heard that analogy a few times. It's sort of like, Matt, there's lots of different paths up the mountain. As I've usually heard it as.
Exactly. I mean, my mum used to say, everybody, irrespective of religion, are basically praying to the same thing.
Yeah.
It's universal energy, God, call it what, him, her, whatever, I don't know. But whatever that energy is, we all come from, we're all from the same font, I think, irrespective. But people neglect that, don't they, and let religion dictate terms to them.
Yeah.
As I say, I most people are decent and lovely, and I've always believed that, and I still believe that. But it's just some of these vile individuals just ruin it if you let them.
Exactly. Now, going back to investigating, I did an investigation years ago where we had the team I was with, we had an experience that we couldn't explain. And we asked another team to go in to see whether they experienced the same thing or, whether or not it was just the hype of our evening that we got caught away with and all the rest of it. Had a few things. And you're the team, Dan's team was the team that went in to the location. We can't name the location because it's now not out there. It's not wanting any connection. So I won't name the location.
That's fair enough.
But I just kind of wondered, off the back of that, going in knowing we'd had experiences as a team, how did you deal with that? Or did you just go in completely?
I can't speak for the other team members, but for me, I just go in. I mean, because obviously Dawn was part of it, wasn't she, at the time?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, she was there. Yeah.
And I've said to Dawn, look, don't tell me anything, because I'd like to have, if there's experiences, I'd like to kind of have them myself, and not be sort of, not to be pushed down certain avenues. Not that anybody's intentionally doing that, but I think if you get too much information as to what's going on there, it can actually flavour. It can flavour or colour the view of what happens to you.
Mm.
So, I try not to hear other people's experiences. Sometimes you do, you can't help it, but I try not to be swayed by it. And if it replicates it, if I've heard it, then I think, oh, you know what? But then somebody told me that, so it could be just my subconscious, giving me the same effect. But I try not to hear or listen to other people's experiences. And I've always said to people, I used to say to people, look, I mean, I still am really, and a lot of people don't use it. I still think an important part of your kit, and this is going back to the old kit, the old ways, is a pen and a notebook. Yeah. And I think what I like to do is I like to write down things I've heard, felt, seen, and then what I do is I write times down. And then if I've got, to Paul, I used to like doing things like baseline checks. So I would go into a building and I'd have an anemometer, and what it would do is it would pick up on temperature and it would pick up on wind speeds. And so I would go round windows, and then if it went up, it jumped. I knew there was probably a gap in the window there, particularly if it was an old window, or there was a gap under a door, or one of the glasses was broke. So I could go, okay, that glass is broke. So if we pick anything up there, I'll know that chances are that's probably coming through there. And so you can reflect on it. And I think a good thing as well, I've said to people, if you have experiences, don't shout out, look, this has happened to me. Write it down. And then at the end of the investigation, we can all sit down, have a cup of tea and go, right, this happened to me at 9:15. And then somebody, well, actually, that happened to me, And Paul was on about things last night which people don't use anymore, which I think are really good, are data loggers. Because then you get the times and stuff, and you go back to that data logger and you can think, right, okay, so this happened at that time that I felt that. What was different about the environment? And if somebody else has then had that experience at a later time, then you can go back to the data logger again and you can just cross-reference stuff. You know,
Yeah, because
people don't tend to do it anymore.
Yeah, because what I mentioned was when we'd done the Reigate House with the data logger, and we was able to pick up a pattern in the EMF peaks, and we compared it to the local train station.
Exactly.
Thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's right. You're right. And so that either gives you well, this happened at that time, or what else was there? I mean, we did an investigation at Robin Hood experience in Nottingham, myself and Viv, just the two of us. And the guy had said, "Oh, when this happens here, and there's two children's spirits there, and by the end of it, we worked all these experiences that people were having. We worked out that they were environmental. So, for example, there were kids running up and down the stairs, but in the building next door, and you could hear them running up and down the stairs. And of course, that's what he misinterpreted as, you know, this is what, you know, this is spirits. And there were other things, and we went down, or Viv went down to the cellar. If I'd have gone down the cellar, I'd never got out of it. It's tight. But anything, she went, no, nothing really. But then we were sitting there, and actually Viv noticed it. We brought a bottle of water with us, and she put it on the side. And at certain times, the water would just move, just sort of shake gently. And she called it. She said, "There's probably a train line or something that runs underneath it," and there was. There's a train line, and at certain times, and then, like, I mean, obviously, if you do an investigation and people having certain experiences other than the water moving, if you can then tie that in with the timing of a train going past, high amount of voltages and electricity, it could be something like that, as simple as that. I think that's what's been lost, isn't it? Those basic rules and fundamental things that we used to do years ago are kind of neglect. People don't even. If you said to somebody now, "Well, what about you doing baseline checks?" What are baseline checks?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's the rock that your investigation's built on, really. You know.
Yeah, I had a friend. He had a flat in London. It was a ground floor flat, and it was built right above the central line, and you could hear everything that was going on. And even the station announcements.
But that's exactly, and that's the thing, isn't it? There's so many things, but unless people scrutinise what they say is evidence, unless they scrutinise that, they're never going to find out that it could be environmental factors.
Yeah.
You know, even to the point of, you know, keeping track on where everybody is in the building at any given time.
Yeah.
You know, but actually, a good example. You were talking earlier. The vaults in that in Scotland, and it wasn't Kingsmary Close, it was the other vaults. I did the other vaults, or the vaults that were over the side, and there was I had a K2, and that kept going off, and I thought, why is that going off all the time? Why is that? And people were getting experiences in this cell of being touched and what have you, and it was in this particular cell it was going off, and it transpired that the road was just slightly above it. Okay. And there was electric lines that ran through as well. And so, okay, so maybe that's what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
But overall, I didn't really get anything out of any of them, really. But it's interesting, nevertheless.
Always very interesting. Now, another location that you've been to that you found very interesting was Derby Jail.
Yes. Yeah, Derby Jail is just it's a tiny part of what it used to be. And the Derby Jail that's there at the moment, I think it dates from the sort of mid 1700s. And I think they revamped it in the mid 1800s because they used to keep like 10 people in a cell at any given time. And it's got a lot of history. And it was out the front of the building now that it's run by Richard Felix, isn't it? It's out the front of that now.
Yeah.
Is where they used to have a scaffold. And so that's where a lot of the executions. And there was even executions by axe done there for certain ne'er-do-wells, as it were.
All right.
Derby jail. I mean, apparently there was 5 jails, I think. Derby at point. Vernon Gatehouse and bits and bobs that are left of it now. There's still a lot of it's been turned into posh private dwellings. But you've got that up the end, and you've got another part of another jail over the other side. But the real significant part is the little part that Richard's got. That's the historical part that is kept as a jail. Experiences in there. The condemned cell. Had knocking in there. Door moving. Also had during the daytime, but this is what I say, spirits are there all the time. It's not just going to be there at night.
Yeah.
They'll be there 24/7.
True.
So we were there having a meeting. We weren't having a meeting, it was like a social. And there were a few of us there, and we sort of split up into different teams. And one team went where the sort of bar area is, but tucked inside where the disco used to be. And then the other team went to the other side, or down the other end, and they went where I think it was the police service museum and stuff they had there. And we're all quiet, and then we heard this woman breathing. And it was very audible, and we all like looking at each other. So I got up because it seemed to be just the other side of the curtain from where we were. So, maybe a couple of feet away. So I walked around the curtain. There's nothing there. And they said, no, nothing at all. Sat back down, and she was breathing. So you hear her breathing again. It was like, and it was definitely a woman. I checked it again, nothing. But yeah, there's been some in there. And I think the last death in there was as recent as the 80s. And it was it was an argument. It ended up somebody, unfortunately, meeting their end. Love them. But lots of activity in there. And the condemned cell, there were 2 brothers, and the night before they were due to be hanged, they cheated the executioner. They hanged themselves in that cell. And so there's lots and lots of bits and bobs going on there, lots of history and stuff there. And that's quite I don't know, I think it's against the historical value, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's an interesting building, tiny, but yeah, I enjoy it when I've done it.
It's famed for Richard Felix from the Most Haunted Historian side of things.
It is.
And his big research project, shall we say, is stone tape theory.
Yes. And he was doing that. Wasn't he doing something as well? Was called Science and the Psychic? Wasn't he doing it with Derek Acora, I think, at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I think he was getting Derek to channel, and they were using smoke and lights and things like that to see if they could get the spirit to materialize in the smoke. I believe. I could be completely wrong on that.
No, I think you're right. I think you are right. It sounds about right to me. Yeah, it sounds about that. Sounds like the sort of thing he was doing. But yeah, he's had it for a long while, hasn't he? Over years.
The problem I have with that particular experiment would be pareidolia. You're setting up the audience. Exactly. You've got a medium working there, and them going, "Can you see that? He's materializing in the smoke?" And then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I can see that." But you're setting that's more in my opinion, would be a psychological priming for pareidolia.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Absolutely. And
personally,
you can look at a smoke and make anything out of it, can't you? We're designed, aren't we? We're programmed and hard programmed to recognize faces in things.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the first things you recognise as a baby is your mother's face.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
And we look for patterns all through. That's what your brain does. It's one of the main things of your brain, isn't it? Is searching for patterns.
Yeah, definitely.
In everything, even music and stuff like that, which is interesting. It's an interesting, fascinating look at that. If you're not aware of that, go and check that out, because that's fascinating when you look into that.
It is. Yeah, definitely.
Now, of all the things you've had to look into off the back of an investigation of an experience, what's the weirdest one that you've actually research projects gone down rabbit hole to try and find the answer?
This is a horrible one. This is horrible. Investigation years ago. I was home. It was, and the guy was a straight shooter. He believed in spirit, but he didn't really to it like a lot for him to buy into it. And he started having stuff going on in his house. And he said, "Look, can you come and have a look and bring your friend who does the exorcisms to this house?" So I said, "Yeah, okay." And then we sat him and his wife down, and separately they told us that they told us there was a spirit on the stairs, which was the old lady who lived there, and he'd seen her on the stairs, and he was fine with her, no problem. And then he spoke to the milkman who'd been doing that round for years, and he said, "Was there an old lady lived in this property?" And he went, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I've just seen a woman, or I've seen a woman on the stairs, and my wife has seen her. We've seen her alternate times, not fussed by her, but she just stands there and she looks down the stairs at us." And he said, "Well, what was she dressed like? What did she look like?" And he explained to her what she looked like. And he went, "Yeah, that's her. That's the woman who lived here. And she fell down the stairs and broke her neck. I think she had a heart attack at the top of the stairs, and then on the way down, she snapped her neck, bless her." And but he wasn't fussed by that. To say there was a black shape used to keep going into their room and then just looking at them and then moving out the room. And he woke up one night. I mean, his house was Victorian, and he woke up one night and he said he saw a child playing with the weirdest thing. He got up and he said he saw a child at the curtains were open, the light had come through from the street light, and he saw a child playing with a clockwork train at the bottom of the bed. He said, and I bolted up, still there. He went, and then it faded and it was gone. So I said, "Well, you know what? It could be, maybe it could be some sort of sleep, something going on because they're hitting the hypnagogic and the bombic when you're going to sleep and when you're waking up." Yeah. But he said, no, because he said, my wife has seen the boy as well. He said, in our room. He said, and his wife was doing something in the cupboard and she got kicked into the cupboard and the door got shut behind her. And she had to phone him to come and get her out. So I said, "Okay, fair enough. I'll come around and have a look." So I said to my mate, I said, "Look, property, let's go." And I turned up, and now these people were spotless. They were immaculate. The kids were immaculate. They were immaculate. The house was immaculate. Not a spot of dust or dirt anywhere. But I walked in, and this smell was rank, and I had to say, "Oh, I'm going out the front to meet my friend Mike because I don't want him shooting past." But I wanted to get out of the house because I thought I was going to be sick. So Mike turned up, Nick turned up, and he said, "What's it like?" I said, "I had to get out of there." I said, "Because it was horrible." I said, "It's dark, it's dingy. I was going to vomit." I said, "I was really feeling like I was going to vomit." I said, "No, I just don't. I've never experienced that. Just don't." I said, "But there's a smell, clawing smell in there that it gets into your throat." And he went, "Oh, really?" So I said, "Yeah." He said, "Right." So he walked in and he looked around and he talked to the guy and then he talked to the children and they introduced me to the girl's father. And just didn't like him. And I'm not like that. I like everybody, I like everybody. But I didn't like this guy. Just didn't like him. And at the end, he came over to shake my hand and I just walked off. I ignored him. And Mick went, I know. He said, "I know." He said, "I'll tell you what," he went, "while that guy's around," he went, "they're always going to have negative energies in that house." So I spoke to my friend and it turns out that was his father-in-law, was a paedophile. And he was caught with tons and tons of explicit photos on his computer, was put in prison, and he came out after a year or two. And then he used to go around, but it was just, I just got, and I'm not, as I say, I'm not psychic or mediumistic, but this guy to me screamed, just don't touch him, don't go near him, you'll be tainted. It felt like that. I just didn't want to go near him. I was probably scared of him, to be honest with you. There's probably a fear factor in me thinking, oh no, I don't like. He creeped me out big time. Yeah, that's what it is. He said, look, I've cleared the energy that was there. He said, and I've done my best to sort of keep it under wraps. He said, but as long as he keeps going back, he said that whatever's negative that's with him, he went, it's just going to keep coming back in and in and in. And of course, how do you tell your mate that, but I had to in the end. I said, look, this is the upshot of it. I said, look, it's information, you might not want to hear it, but if I don't give it to you, then I'm not really doing my job properly. I'm leaving you with a whole baggage of problems, which isn't fair. And I don't know what happened after that, but I sort of didn't see my friend for a while, and I haven't seen him for a couple of years. But this guy, I just didn't want to go anywhere near him. Just terrified me, and made me feel sick. And that was it. But the thing is, once Mick had done his whole clearing and he'd done his stuff, the smell went, and the house was brighter. It was absolutely brighter. You could see it. It was tangibly brighter. And I said, I can't believe that, Mick. I said, the place is like a different house. But as he said, yeah, but as long as he keeps coming back, he went, you can't, what can you do?
It's just going to keep polluting it again.
Yeah. He said, it's him. He said, he's the problem. He said, not the house. He said, and that's with the old woman. He said, I'll get the idea. He said that she's there, keeping whatever's in there away from the kids.
Yeah.
Protecting the children, which is why she was at the top of the stairs looking down outside the boy's bedroom. Yeah. So bless her. She was there knowing what was there and thinking, I've got to try and stop him from getting to the children. That's what we thought. But yeah, so there's that type of thing going on, That was the weirdest and creepiest, really. That was the weirdest and the oddest one. But horrible.
Yeah, not a nice situation to try and deal with, is it?
Horrible.
So,
vile. Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine. So you've now moved on. Let's move away from that one quite quickly.
Yes.
You've moved. So you're working quite closely with Viv. You do your own podcasting now as well, or live streaming, isn't it? What would you class that as?
Well, we dip our toes in.
A live podcast on the social media.
We butcher it.
I wouldn't say that. So where can people find you for a start on that one?
That's on Simply Spooky, which is run through Facebook. Simply Spooky sites. Just type in Simply Spooky, and then we'll come up. And you can go on to Facebook or YouTube, and if you put in Striking Midnight Paranormal, then we'll come up again. We haven't got that many videos on there at the minute, and we were due to upload some more, but unfortunately I broke my foot the other week, so it kind of stopped me from getting out. So
this is true.
It's okay now. It's all good. So we'll be out again pretty soon. So
I can't believe you broke your foot.
I'll probably break my other foot. I'll tell you, I'm terrible. So that's where you'll find us.
And what's your experience been doing the podcasting? I mean, we love it. The three of us do. We've been doing it for many years, and we love doing it. Well, so how's it been for you?
Blind. Obviously more accomplished than I am. But yeah, I enjoy it. It's great to sort of speak to people from the same field, to get. And it's great. I mean, we've had it all on there. We've had lots of intellects, the odd lunatic, but nice lunatic, English eccentrics, I think I should call them. That type, But we've had people like that on, which are great. I mean, they're valuing themselves. We've had some heavy going ones as well. One in particular, which broke my heart. That was that one. But yeah, overall, we try and make it as jolly and as fun as possible. And you know what Viv's like. She spends most of the time just ripping the mick out of me. So
this is true.
This is true. This is what we do, and it's I think people like it and enjoy it because just a couple of idiots banging on about rubbish, really. And that's what we do.
I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't say that. You enjoy it and you have fun.
Rubbish. I'll try and keep it on the intelligentsia. Yeah, right. No, we just have fun. We just have fun on there and stuff, and we just enjoy it. Yeah. We're also on Things Network as well, which is like the American one. They gave us a show. Obviously, they didn't check us out before they give it to us. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have. But,
but you're there now.
Yeah, exactly. They're not throwing us out now. Fun as well, and that's just me and Viv just chatting nonsense, really. But obviously, it's all about the paranormal and different bits and bobs and that. But it's nice because I think now I know the politics. Everybody's moved, like you guys and us and other selected teams and other people. We're all on the periphery now, and we don't deal with that rubbish anymore. And it's so refreshing to know that periphery of it. We can work together, and we haven't got to worry about all that negativity. And it's probably a good thing, really, because I think it's sorted itself out. So yeah, that's it, really.
So, guys, that's Simply Spooky over on Facebook or Striking Midnight over on the YouTube channels. Go check those two areas out because they're absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
Listen, it's funny. It's funny from our perspective watching other people do their thing. Not funny, but funny as in, like, it's weird, isn't it? Because we do it ourselves. We know what it's like when you're in that sea.
You've done it for years, haven't you? And Viv's done it for a few years, and I'm kind of a newbie.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of dipped my toe in, so I'm still very much learning the craft or ruining it. Yeah, but I have fun on it, and it's lovely. It's lovely to speak to nice, decent people. It's just good fun.
Who's your favourite guest so far? Careful.
Do you know what? I can't think of those. So Elaine.
Where's that mute button? Hang on a minute. Wait for it.
He's had all three of us on the show, and he's thinking of someone completely different. Have you noticed?
You know what? I didn't take any other podcasters or friends into consideration. Elaine Clark, I think. Maybe not Clark, but she's a trans medium, and she channels an energy or a spirit called Jonathan Hunt.
Elaine Thorpe.
Jonathan Hunter. Jonathan Hunt.
Yeah.
Thorpe, that's the lady's name. Absolutely. Sweet woman. And she's just, it's nice to speak to Jonathan, but we want to get her back because I'd like to speak to her. I want to see her story.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's lovely to speak to Jonathan, but find out about her story, her background, and when she first discovered it and that. Because a lot of people, I noticed, they interview her, but they interview her with the proviso that Jonathan's going to come through all the time.
Exactly. Yeah,
and it's like,
I noticed that.
You're forgetting the lady who's channeling Jonathan. It's great to speak to Jonathan, but it's just as nice to speak to her.
It's the stories, isn't it, that people, and it's personal, again, the personal journey that person's gone through.
Exactly that. It's exactly that. I want to know about her childhood. Was there any other people in her family that had that gift? When did she discover she had it? Just the general stuff, to find out about her. Because I don't think nobody seems to question her. Nobody knows that much about her. And yet she's such a sweet lady.
Yeah, she's
so lovely. Just nice. No disrespect to Jonathan. Jonathan's lovely. Fantastic. Yeah. But it's just nice to get her side of the story. Yeah, I'd like to get her back on again at some point.
Yeah, she's very interesting.
She is. I remember when you had her on last time, and I actually watched your show and for that, and it just blew my mind. I was like, I'd love to talk to her.
Do you know what? You should try and get her on. Try and get her on. We got contact for her, so we'll give it to you. But the thing about her, you've got all these things in your head running around. If I met a spirit, I would ask them this. I would question this. I would do that. I would do. And then when Jonathan came on, I was in awe.
Yeah, I know. We felt like that with Barry Strong.
Yeah.
And he's talking. I'm going, it's like I've been to the dentist and had my mouth injected. I just couldn't speak.
It's the weirdest sensation. We had a Barry Strong come on, and he channels some really famous characters, doesn't he, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jesus is listening to the show at the moment. So, hello, Jesus.
Exactly. Number one fan.
Yeah.
But it was weird in a way because on one hand, your brain is going, this can't be true. This is too weird. It can't be happening. Do you know what I mean? So on one hand, you want to sort of like not it's not a catch them out, but you don't want to. I don't know. It was I found it incredibly weird. I kind of wanted information that I wouldn't have read in a book that famous character. So I can verify for myself that is who he's channeling, I suppose. But all I can say is that the weirdest thing was when Jesus came on, it was very unusual vibe. It felt a very different vibe.
Yeah, I think that's because he had to come away from the poker table. Left Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Donatello all sitting around.
Right.
Did Donatello apparently he had a couple of cards up his sleeve, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Up his doublet.
Oh, you too. I don't know, Richard. What are we going to do?
What are we going to do with them? Yes.
But that's the thing, though, isn't it? The fact that, I mean, you know what it's like. You could potentially be. I mean, I have no qualms about believing her because I think she's completely credible. And the fact that it's not just a different voice, but it's a whole different personality. And
exactly
the words that he uses. And I'm not saying anything about Elaine because she's lovely, but she's just like me. She's an ordinary person. You know, she hasn't had an eaten education. But by the same token, when Jonathan comes forward, who does come from a posh background, all of a sudden the words and his turn of phrase is just eloquent.
Yeah.
You know, and you think, well, that these are two.
It's totally different.
Poles. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you speak to him, it's like, you know, the questions that I thought, I'm going to ask him this, I'm going to ask him that. And this idiot, I was, how did you get about in your day then? Was it horses? And then you think, what a question to ask someone? You moron. You know,
but then it's that feeling of being disrespectful to that person, isn't it? It's like we Henry VIII we spoke to, didn't we?
Yeah.
Through Barry, obviously. And then you think, God, if this really is King Henry VIII that I'm talking to here, I want to ask the questions that you would probably have got your head chopped off for in the past.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, do you regret? I think one of the questions we asked was, do you regret what you did to your wives? You know, but I would never ask a real live and kicking king that.
No, and it was like with Jonathan, I found myself being very deferential to him. So I was almost like a Victorian street urchin, bobbing the cap to him and going, "Oh, sir, yes, sir. If I may be some," I've even said that. If I may be, who uses this flowery language in this day and age? If I may be so bold as to ask you, Jonathan, nobody see that and bloody drama pieces on TV, that sort of language. Yeah, I was coming out with it because
it's a very strange feeling.
Odd, so odd, because you think I want to be respectful to the man because he comes from a time period where, you know, then obviously I forget that he's obviously seen evolved and how things have moved forward. And so it's not too much of a shock to be talking to somebody from the sort of 21st century, even if it is an idiot like me. You know, it's like, but he's great. He's, you know, I've got no qualms that she's channeling that energy, that spirit. She's amazing. And as I said, somebody said to me before, you know, well, I said, yeah, look, I've had my suspicions about people sometimes, but at the end of the day, if I'm not experiencing what that person's experiencing, who am I then to criticise them for what they're telling me?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know what's going on in their head. I can't quantify it, so therefore I'm no expert. So if somebody tells me something, I might be sceptical, but I'm not going to call them out on it, and I'm not going to completely disbelieve them because I don't know. I'm not having that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. You have interviewed somebody who is just, again, a lovely, lovely person who is actually very underrated, I would say, in the paranormal field recently, and that's Barry Fitzgerald.
I haven't. Viv's quite friendly with Barry. I only met Barry once or twice, but he wouldn't know me from Adam. But yeah, I know Viv's very friendly with him, and she's interviewed him a couple of times. And when I've met him, he's I'll be honest, and if he's listening, he'll probably want to punch my face in. But when I saw him when he was on Ghost Hunters International, I wasn't that enamoured with him. I thought he was a little bit full of himself. Completely. And when I met him, you couldn't wish to meet a nicer, quieter, more refined person. He was just lovely man.
And I would recommend checking his work out as well.
Yeah, he's written some good books as well.
He's written some
books.
really interesting books, far beyond
Yeah.
what you would ever see on the telly.
Oh, yeah.
Quite frankly.
Yeah.
And
In
I think
fact, he
that's...
was on that show.
Sorry, carry on.
Sorry, he was completely undershone on that show. They didn't highlight him as much as they could have. They didn't use him to the best of his abilities because the man's absolute genius.
Mm. And I think that's the thing when you start talking to people, isn't it? You find, you know, that's one of the beauties of doing the job we do. You know, in whatever stream you do it, you get to talk to these people and find out more behind the public image, even the social media image that people put out. And there's so much more knowledge and experience beyond that. And that's such a gem to find, isn't it? To do, is to dig and find that.
It is. I mean, there was a very well-known ghost hunter. I won't mention his name. An American fella, and he was on Ghost Hunters International. He's done various TV stuff, and he said he was on a podcast recently, and I listened to him, and it blew me away because he said that, you know, a lot of these people that are on these programs have never hunted a ghost before they've been on that program.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all done through casting agents, and they're not really
Yeah.
interested in your background as a ghost hunter. They're interested in how they can sell you.
Yeah.
And I never realised. I mean, obviously, I knew that a lot of them weren't prolific in what they did, but I never realised that they came with no background, and it was just a storyline that they were fed. And he said that, you know, he was very critical of that whole industry, about questioning people's credibility. And he said, well, you know, with the best will in the world, and he was honest. He said, you know, most people will be credible in these shows. He said, but then when the corporation want more out of you and it's not been produced, he said it's not unusual for them to wave $100,000 in your face an episode. He said, and of course, most people will sell out for that because they're thinking short term.
Yeah.
And I found that interesting. I found that really interesting. So, but people like Barry, who was a very prolific, very grounded, intelligent paranormal investigator, and one of the best, I think, is fantastic, and an all-round nice fella, he wasn't shown in his best light, you know. So I judged him really as the guy off of Hunters International, when I should have really been judged. I should have really waited to see, you know, his true character, but I didn't know, you know. But now I know better.
But you learn, don't you? And that's part of the beauty of what we do. We get to talk to these people and we learn that. And that's a fantastic opportunity for us, but a great showcase for them as well, to show that they are more than you think they are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know Viv's friendly with quite a few of them off of that, the Ghost Hunters International stuff. There's a Chinese guy there. I can't think of the fella's name.
Joe Cujo.
That's right. And I've never met him, but everybody I've spoken to that have met him said he's an absolute gentleman.
He is. He's gorgeous.
And a fantastic ghost hunter. But again, they never showed him he's never shown to his true light, unfortunately. But, you know, once you get to meet him and you realise that there's more substance to these people than you initially thought, it's quite exciting, and it's great. It's great, you know. But yeah, such is life, I guess.
It's one of those things, isn't it? But again, once they've done the TV thing, he's kept quiet, he's kept his head down, he's doing his thing, writing his books, researching, reading, he's doing that side of thing and coming out with some phenomenal work that's so underrated in the field. It's just crazy.
Absolutely.
Talking of which, have you ever thought about writing your own sort of like the Dan Winter memoirs?
Do you know what? I toyed with the idea, but there's so many books out there, I think, that are memoirs that I think they all become carbon copies of each other. Really want to listen to me rattling on in a book, you know? Oh, can you hear me?
I think you'd be surprised. Yeah, I think you'd be
sorry.
surprised.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you look at some of these investigators, I mean, people like Barry and that, brilliant, because the books they bring out, you know, there's substance to them. Whereas if I'm just telling ghost stories and things that happen, I'm not sure people would be too fussed about that. But I think there's enough celebrities in the field without me trying to throw my hat in the ring. You know? I'm just happy to investigate and leave it at that, really. But one day I might do something, I don't know.
I'll say, yeah, you've done so many investigations and that, you must have a really good story to tell through all those, so you should go for it.
Crayons for Christmas, and I'll do one.
Yeah, make it colourful. Appeal to the LGBTQTSCWABQ.
All the alphabet people.
Anyway, on that note, we have actually come to the end of the show. So I'd like to thank you so much, Dan, for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'd like to thank all of you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for inviting me on. Thank you.
That's not a problem.
Thanks, guys.
No, we really have enjoyed tonight's discussion. It's been really fascinating. Newsboys, have we got any news?
I updated the website today. It's now got all of our shows up and on the thing, so you can have a look. It's at www.paranormalconcept.com. So yeah, all our back catalogue of shows are all on there now.
Oh, that's good.
Beautiful.
To hear. Yeah.
Richard?
You can find us on Facebook. We have a sort of Paul and myself sort of had at least a post today up on the Facebook page, which is just Paranormal Concept, and yeah, that's about it really.
I think we should also add that Richard sells his books.
Yes,
I was going to say side hustles.
Yeah,
side hustles. Yes.
Yeah,
well,
Richard sells his books, paranormal books. Go on.
Yes, I've got a little sort of side hustle going on eBay, Unearthly Books, which is me basically recycling a lot of books I've collected over the years for resale.
Yeah, that's a good idea because it gives us a chance to buy them then. And
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I sell crystal necklaces and jewellery and stuff. So check out the Rook's Nest. That's on Facebook. And
where do you get your crystals from?
I get mine from a very, 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 very lovely crystal lady called Kerry Greenaway at Spirit and Soul Island. Kerry, would you like to tell us a little bit more about that as well?
Yeah, great crystals at great quality,
Absolutely.
Great prices, everybody.
Spirit and
Soul Island.
So. It's like you've done that before, Kerry.
Trying to get them to promote themselves is like, trying to rock uphill. On that note, thank you again, Danny. It's been an absolute pleasure. Don't forget, guys out there, go onto Facebook, find Simply Spooky, go listen to their podcast. They get some amazing guests on there and have a fantastic discussion, as well as checking Striking Midnight Paranormal out there on the YouTube channels. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back, guys. We'll be back with you again next week. And on that note, say good night, guys.
Good night, guys.